This is a page of a comic book that has been handed to the 9-year-old little girl I babysit at a public library. It's called Les Nombris, which means the belly buttons in English. And it's promoted as a perfectly appropriate comic book for teens. This one happened to be in a child's library section. I mean, how appropriate for a 9-year-old to be looking at. For a really long time, I've been aware that our culture is littered with horrible examples for the youth, the entertainment industry, the music industry. You got Miley Cyrus, who used to be Hannah Montana, a popular show for kids, just a few years ago was wearing a strap-on dildo on stage, and she's supposed to be an example for the young generation. So I know things are messed up. But today I've experienced something that made me realize that we've reached a whole new low. I babysit two kids. One is a 9-year-old girl, the other one is a 6-year-old boy, and I went to the library today. Cute little public library in a nice, wealthy neighborhood. I went there for an activity that the little boy was signed up for. And in the meantime, the 9-year-old girl was, picking and choosing books to read while her brother was busy doing this activity. And I was going back and forth between the two, supervising both. And at some point I just go and see what the 9-year-old girl is doing. And she's holding this book, and I can see her face, she's kind of looking at it weird, and I think she's just, reading a kid's book. I trust the public library choice of books for young children. And I keep looking at her, and she keeps looking at it, the page is weird, and I was like, what are you reading? And then she just looks like this, and she's like, well, it's kind of weird. It's this lady that works here that just handed it to me saying, here you go, read this. So I opened the pages, and this is what I see. I find the 9-year-old girl that I babysit in the children's section of the library reading this book. Not only that, being handed this book to her. My first thought was, this is a mistake. This probably belongs in the adult section, those raunchy little comic books for adults. I was like, okay, this is not meant to be there. So I go to the reception and I ask the guy working there, does this belong in the kids section? Is this a mistake? And he just looks at me right away. He's like, yeah, no, it's for kids. It's just the style of the artist that produces these books, and it has nothing to do really with the story. It's just how they're dressed, basically. This is the style of drawing. He agreed that it was kind of much, but he was explaining to me that it's marketed for kids. So I actually brought the book back. I had to. And for the rest of the day, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And this is why I'm making this video. When I was a kid, I remember idolizing the Spice Girls. I was just, patting my bras and dancing in front of the mirror and hoping that I could be beautiful and attractive and sexy like them. I have nothing against the Spice Girls, but even then, it put those thoughts in my head. Already it had an effect on me, and for the most part of my adolescence, I was super self-conscious and comparing myself to other girls. So if idolizing the Spice Girls had that much of an effect on my psyche, I can only imagine the effect that those kind of outfits, this kind of culture has. There's YouTube, there is social media, there is Instagram, and when I scroll, I don't know, get emotional. This is the social environment we're creating for kids. Kids are basically being brought up to believe that the sexier they are, the less clothes they wear, the more provocative they are in their little Musical.ly videos or on their Instagram pictures, the more they're valuable, the more likes they get, the more they're climbing the social ladder, so to speak. Every young teen I see are immersed in that culture, and it becomes real for them. When you're a kid, you're so suggestible. You're branching out of your family environment, I guess, and you want to fit in, you want to make friends. And this is the standard that's imposed on you. So you go with it. When I was a kid, I went with it too. I wanted to be accepted, and when I started to like boys, I wanted boys to like me. So what did I do? I took cues from my environment, from what I saw from the media, what I read in magazines of how to be. So it was a problem back then for sure, but it's getting worse. When you're a kid, by default, that's how your brain works. When you're a kid, you're taking cues from your environment. You're so easily imprinted. And that's what's happening more and more. That kind of stuff is targeted towards kids. And then, the politically correct argument is that, the sexual liberation, and there's nothing shameful about sex, and we should tell our kids about it. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with sex, nothing at all. It's a beautiful thing, it's a natural thing. It's the version of sex that's being sold. It's the version of being sexy that's being sold. That it's about objectification. You're valued by how much big of a butt that you have or big boobs that you have instead of the person that you are and the mind that you have. And that's what's being pushed. And it's bad enough that's being pushed on, adults. It's being pushed on young kids now. Young kids. Kids that didn't even go through puberty yet, that don't even have those concepts in their mind of sex and sexuality. Having the talk is important, but don't let the media have that talk with your kids for you. Don't let YouTube have that talk with your kids for you. All I'm saying is, kids are precious because kids are the future. We have the choice in what we consume. We have the choice in how we raise our kids, how we talk to our kids, and how we help them navigate through this culture that we are all in. I mean, the kids of today will be the adults of tomorrow. And the adults of tomorrow is what will make society of tomorrow. So I guess this is a call to action for anybody who knows kids or teenagers or has kids or has teenagers to just talk to them and remind them that it's about who they are, the person that they are, the value they bring in the lives of others, how kind they are, how good of a person they are, that determines your worth. It's our job to talk to them and to have a positive influence on them and remind them what's really important. When we know better, we do better, and I hope that by knowing the problem, we can not be part of it and be part of the solution and all the good stuff in the world, because there's lots of good, and I'm not about harping on the problem. That's not what I'm all about. I'm about fueling what's right in each other, in humanity. And yeah, let's fuel that in our kids as well. Why don't we?